One of the most contentious and deadly movie stars in America was Mae West. For her Broadway show Sex, she was once detained and placed in handcuffs after being charged with public moral degradation. However, she entered Roosevelt Island prison as though she were entering a new stage rather than offering an apology. And it didn't end there. When it was still frowned upon, she wrote in the Times on the drag of openly discussing the LGBTQ+ community. Then, in the spotlight, she walked openly with younger guys, transforming prejudice into power and mockery into a brand. However, that is only the beginning of the tale. Come along as I delve into Mae West's most startling scandals and secrets. Mae West was born in Brooklyn, New York on August 17, 1893. Mary Jane West was her birth name. Her father, a former boxer, started a private investigation company and went on to become a police officer. Tilly or Matilda, her mother, was a German immigrant from Bavaria. The Protestant family lived in a number of different neighborhoods. Mae had an early interest and an acute awareness of the world as a result of this ongoing environmental change. When her oldest sister Katie passed away at a very young age in 1911, the family was devastated. Mae West felt vulnerable about life after this loss, as though everything may vanish at any time. Her mother saw her daughter's acting ability right away. Mae had her first public appearance at the nearby Society Hall in Woodhaven after she urged her to take part in amateur plays. A legend was created on a small stage to little applause. By the resolve of a Brooklyn girl who was determined to overcome mediocrity and become someone no one could ignore, not by chance. After 2 years, she was regularly participating in amateur performances and won awards at regional talent contests. These weren't merely little medals. They were the first indications that this Brooklyn child was not destined for a quiet existence. She joined the Hal Clarendon Theater Company in 1907 at the age of 14, marking the official start of her professional career. She used the stage name Baby Mae on the variety show, a moniker that was both bold and innocent, thus hinting at the contradiction that would accompany her throughout her life. She soon began experimenting with several personas, including male impersonation, a daring decision in early 20th century conservative culture. In an attempt to discover her own identity, she occasionally went by the alias Jane Mast. Her provocative, swaying gait, which is thought to have been inspired by well-known female impersonators from the pansy craze era like Bert Savoy and Julian Elling, helped develop her performance approach over time. Mae learned to master her sexual impulses and use them as a potent weapon on stage rather than being afraid to express them. She debuted on Broadway in Ned Wayburn's A la Broadway in 1911 at the age of 18. She was recognized by the New York Times as a notable character for her eccentricity and rapid singing and dancing, despite the show's short run of 8 performances. In the years that followed, she kept making appearances with Al Jolson in Vera Violeta and portrayed Le Petite Daffy in a charming widow role, a youthful, alluring persona that started to characterize Mae West's identity. She became well known for her audacious shimmy dance by 1918 when she appeared with Edwin in the Schubert Brothers' Sometime. The song Everybody Shimmies Now used her image on the cover. Unmistakable proof that Mae West was no longer an unknown actress. But as her career took off, a personal secret surfaced. Mae, when 17 years old, secretly wed Frank Satis, later known on stage as Frank Wallace in Milwaukee in April 1911. He even falsified her age because Wisconsin law required brides to be 18. Her only legally acknowledged marriage was this one. They did not, however, actually cohabitate for very long, and their formal divorce was not finalized until 1942. Mae West denied ever being married for a long time. Before an old marriage certificate was discovered, she worked to project an image of herself as a free, single lady. Her developing career was not overshadowed by this mystery. However, it demonstrated that Mae grasped one concept from a young age. Drama isn't only needed on stage in show business. Life also does. Mae West accomplished something few women would dare to do in the middle of the 1920s, when Broadway was still ruled by rigid moral norms. Her stories revolved around sex, desire, and societal hypocrisy, and she authored her own screenplays. She started creating a theatrical universe under the pen name Jane Mast in which women were active, aspirational, and clever characters rather than helpless victims. Her playtimes, Sex Times, which she wrote, produced, directed, and performed in, created a stir in 1926. The play was a clear jab against traditional society, as evidenced by its title. Religious organizations complained, moral critics denounced it, and the city authorities saw it as a menace that had to be put down. In the end, Mae West and her cast were taken into custody when the authorities invaded the theater. She was charged with influencing young people's morals at Jefferson Market Court and given a 10-day jail sentence. But Mae West, a media prodigy, decided to go to jail rather than pay the fine to be freed. She dined with the warden and his wife, talked with the media, and even revealed that she was still wearing silk undergarments rather than her harsh prison garb while she was on Welfare Island. She was released from prison as a symbol of revolt rather than as a criminal after her sentence was shortened to 8 days. She was referred to by the media as the bad girl who used her blunders to ascend the ladder of prosperity. Sex is a work of art, she said coolly. Mae West's career was not destroyed by the incident. It blew up and changed who she was. She didn't stop there. She went on to push the envelope with The Drag, a play that tackled homosexuality head-on, a subject that was nearly taboo at the time. She declared she would bring it to New York after rehearsals in Connecticut and New Jersey, but the Society for the Suppression of Vice stepped in and made every effort to prevent it. Broadway never hosted the play's debut. Mae mockingly said that authorities couldn't handle and the commotion it would create. Mae West took a very daring stand for a theater star of the 1920s when she publicly denounced police brutality against gay men at a time when society was still debating gender and morality. Despite her sometimes inconsistent pronouncements throughout her career, she supported their ability to live authentically. She highlighted concerns about homosexuality as a threat to the social structure and denounced societal hypocrisy in her 1959 autobiography. However, she wrote, "To live and to let others live is my philosophy in Mae West, Sex, Health, and ESP in 1975. This paradox shows a person who was always ahead of her time, but was not totally immune to the biases of her time." She continued to publish a number of contentious pieces in the late 1920s, including Pleasure Man, The Wicked Age, and particularly Diamond Leal in 1928. Diamond Leal was the confirmation of power if sex was the initial shock. The audacious but astute woman of the 1890s came to represent Mae West, sharp, seductive, and in complete control. The play was a huge hit on Broadway, running for 323 performances. Throughout her career, it was performed multiple times. She made another attempt in 1931 at the Theatre Royal with The Constant Sinner. Critics were ruthless this time. The play was deemed dull by New York Times reporter Brooks Atkinson, who also criticized her performing style for being monotonous and purposefully strange. The play ended after 64 performances, a failure in contrast to Diamond Leal's overwhelming triumph. Failure, however, was never the end for Mae West. In actuality, the criticism served to further solidify her reputation as a controversial and uncompromising musician. It's possible that the public was split. Despite criticism, Mae West's name consistently made headlines, and Hollywood knocked at that precise time, amid the glitz, scandal, and fame. A movie deal was offered by Paramount Pictures. For her aspirations, Broadway was too small. Mae West is getting ready to take on a much larger stage, the Hollywood silver screen, where scandal is no longer a barrier but may instead be a weapon. After being arrested, banned, and subjected to scathing criticism. In 1932, when many women were getting close to 40, Hollywood frequently thought that was past its prime. Mae West signed a $5,000 per week deal with Paramount and traveled by rail from New York to California. On all sides, it was a risky move. The studio was placing a wager on a well-known performer. Mae West was placing a wager on the acceptance of a lady who didn't apologize for her sex appeal by American audiences. Her first movie appearance was in Night After Night 1932, a little supporting part that she didn't like at first. However, Mae never agreed to play a supporting part. She insisted on having her lines rewritten. Additionally, Mae's snarky response, "Oh, that has nothing to do with it, darling," when a girl mentions God while marveling at diamonds on her first visit, stole the show. George Raft, her co-star, later said that she stole everything but the camera. A woman with the ability to control words like a sharp sword has recently been discovered by Hollywood as a new box office weapon. She transformed Diamond Leal into Lady Lou in the 1933 film She Done Him Wrong, co-starring with Cary Grant, a little-known young performer at the time. It is reported that Grant was asked to play the male lead by Mae herself. In addition to being a huge hit, the movie prevented Paramount from going bankrupt and made over $2 million during the Great Depression. Mae West rose to national prominence in I'm No Angel 1933, the biggest grossing movie of her career. She carried on working with Grant. Her name was frequently mentioned in Cole Porter's lyrics on WPA murals, and she even served as an inspiration to artists such as Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo. Her controversial nature was highlighted by the press's shocking comparison of her to Hitler. She was one of the most sought-after celebrities in America by 1933. She was the highest-paid lady in the country by 1935. She was even welcomed to Hearst Castle in San Simeon by newspaper tycoon William Randolph Hearst. There was no time for big reception, although Mae joked that she could have married him. Even if the comment was amusing, it strengthened her reputation as a woman who was not subject to male authority. She made the decision, not the other way around. The Hays Regulation started to be strictly enforced in 1934. Double-meaning conversation, sensuality, and a spirit of provocation. Censorship began to target Mae West's very essence. Her scripts were subject to strict censorship. Mae responded with a clever strategy. In an attempt to keep the less risky lines, she purposefully created really forceful lines to elicit censoring. However, the tightening of control persisted. It Ain't No Sin was the original title of Belle of the 90s, 1934. Nevertheless, she demonstrated that she was still in charge of the creative quality by insisting on having Duke Ellington and his orchestra perform the song My Old Flame. Movies that came after, such Going to Town 1935 and Klondike Annie 1936, were nevertheless
less subject to criticism and censure. Hearst ordered his press to cease promoting Klondike Annie after being offended by a comment made about his mistress, Marion Davies. Paramount started to fear that May's image as a free woman had become excessive.
I am the first liberated woman, she had declared. No man can outsmart me, but that mentality started to fade in Hollywood's strictly controlled environment.